people are going to come up short, frustrated, hurt more. And I think plateaus are a myth, but then that's when people start talking about plateaus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
And
that's,
and building their own barriers. I can't.
yeah.
I've never been able to.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah. And I don't fault them for that, because the hunting for infinite scaling options is not glamorous work. But in my opinion, it's the most important thing, because it keeps high performing individuals that want to make progress, making progress forever.
Welcome to the Captains and Coaches podcast. We explore the art and science of leadership through the lens of athletics and beyond. I'm your host, Tex McQuilkin, and today we're exploring the world of intentional movement with Greg Walsh, owner of Wolf Brigade in Rochester, New York. Greg and I have known each other for a long time in the coaching space, and I was fortunate to catch his eye-opening movement practical at this year's NSCA Coaches Conference in New Orleans. With over 2 decades of experience spanning from CrossFit, kettlebell training, martial arts, and his signature odd lifts, Greg brings us a truly unique perspective to strength and movement development. What separates Greg isn't just his impressive background training athletes, law enforcement, and military personnel. It's his remarkable ability to transform complex movement concepts into accessible wisdom that challenges both body and mind. Join us for a conversation about movement mastery, training philosophy, and the journey of growth, both as a coach and a leader. With that, let's hand it off to Greg, who helped us raise the game. Ready, and Greg. You presented yesterday at the NSCA Coaches Conference in New Orleans, and I saw you on there, and I'm like, all right, I'm flying in early Wednesday because I want to participate. I love practicals. I love finding weaknesses in my own movement, blind spots, and you're one of the best in the business for pointing these out. Efficiency, coaching, communication, and you had a pretty active crowd yesterday. That's a lot for a practical.
Yeah, it was. And thanks for showing up. Thanks for helping. We had a great group. It wasn't the largest group, but that doesn't ever matter. The interactivity is what made it. We had 7, 8, 9 people. Everyone moves different, so it teaches the rest of the group everything they need to know, because they're watching so many bodies move through the same stuff in such a short period of time. It's a really, really effective way to diagnose and improve movement.
Yeah, and you've been in the coaching business a long time. Wolf Brigade, you've gone from California to New York,
Yeah.
and everywhere in between, teaching, coaching. So speak to us of this origin. It was focused on getting people better at moving. Did it start with sport and your connection to, I don't know what you call it. What do you call them? Street sports, BMX,
Yeah,
biking? What do you call them?
action sports is what
Action
they started
sports.
calling it. We just called it BMX riding and skateboarding. Action sports was like an X Games iteration. Like once things started getting popular and on TV, they had to give it a buzzword, and it was action sports. But
I'm not mad at it.
no, I know, I like it. It's an action sport.
Yeah.
People throwing themselves downstairs is action.
So where did action sport then get to training? Because
Yeah.
I don't know if it's connected.
Well, for me, it was BMX riding since I was 11, martial arts since I was 22, and then the combination of those things, both the physical attributes that they built in me, but then the damage that they did to me, are what showed me that strength and conditioning had to be next. With martial arts, I started in more traditional martial arts, realized that wasn't really my cup of tea. And then once I got to California, I had trained Kempo karate for a while and enjoyed that a lot. And my gym was great. But then in 2002, I found my gym. And that's where we had our early days CrossFit. That's where we had, Muay Thai and submission wrestling and all that kind of stuff. And what that started teaching me is that there were an enormous amount of holes in the boat from taking karate and riding BMX. Most specifically, strength, power, endurance, because there wasn't a lot of demand for that stuff. With BMX at that time, I was hyper adapted to the point where it was very, very hard, but it wasn't tiring. And, karate, of course, is very hard and an amazing martial art. It wasn't eliciting what I wanted it to elicit. I guess what I was looking for and didn't know it was combat sports. And I'd watched the UFC since the early ones. We used to sneak out and go to my cousin's house and sneak the pay-per-views in the basement and all this kind of stuff. So that was always what I was looking at as far as my training goals. And so once I found that, and I realized I'd been injured a lot already at that point. Strength and conditioning was what was going to bring me up to a point where I could participate effectively in that.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did that end up being the case, man. Like if I had not begun training and really doing so intelligently, I would have been broken down so early in that process. I never would have been able to continue.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the early injuries, they led you to thinking as well as being efficient, because you had some blockages with your wrist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
almost those were necessary to get to this point where you are searching, discovering, versus just, I'll take that guy's word for it.
I mean, and it's a great point. If everything was easy for me, not easy, but maybe mechanically easy for me, there's no way that I would have dove into the world of diagnostics the way that I did. My ankles had been broken. My right wrist had been broken a few times, and so if I didn't move accurately, my susceptibility to getting injured was very high. I'd had a lot of serious back injuries that had eventually gotten even worse. We can skip over to that in a little while. But if I hadn't have paid attention to details in a way that felt very natural to me, but then in a way that we were able to standardize and apply to others, I mean, for me, I would have been wrecked. And the way that I look at training people that are either injured or recovering is they're going to be able to inform what you put on the people that aren't. Because if it's working on them, then it's going to help everyone. And that's really where I think our independent style process developed. That was still when I was in Long Beach, tinkering with different variations. We just talked about the fact that like I've always romanticized this perfect front rack power clean situation, but my right wrist's broken twice. It doesn't do it. So we started engineering heavy kettlebell lifting because we needed a heavy front rack variation. And then again, that's just when the door opened and we started making some real moves.
Yeah. And whether coaches realize it or not, no matter the sport, whether it's action sports, football, anything, their mission is efficiency on the field. We want efficient, get to where your role requires at this moment in time before somebody else.
Yeah.
So then now we're in a position where we can teach efficiency with all these different implements. And the challenge with a lot of healthy athletes, they're almost too strong. So they're moving weights, numbers are going up, but their movement is not well. They're too strong to Olympic lift. They're too strong to do kettlebells.
We call it strong enough to hurt yourself. You're strong enough to hurt yourself.
Oh yeah, every 16-year-old boy out there.
That's right. That's right. And if accuracy is taught in strength and conditioning, and that mindset is open to it, I mean, it transfers seamlessly to sport, especially fighting sports. The technicality of how strength and conditioning can be performed at its highest levels is mirrors martial arts, if not exceeds it. And we found that to be the case. Micro adjustments in things like striking or grappling or anything like that is the same as micro adjustments in kettlebell lifting or barbell lifting or mace lifting or even bodyweight stuff.
In this 22 year, just 23, we're 2025, and speaking to a lot of people about efficiency, value of movement, I've met a lot of parents that push back and just say, well, this coach is cheaper, I'm just going to go with them.
Yeah.
Versus a highly efficient, effective professional that can really take the kid where they can't take themselves or the other coach. So how do you communicate the value of efficiency, of this technique and tools that you're teaching with your space?
And that's another great question. It's a really twofold problem / solution. Is if the parents are bought in, then you've at least got the foot in the door, because they're going to walk in. They're usually the ones that are going to pay, and the kid is usually going to at least indulge the parents. But when you get the parent who's involved and engaged, and then you get the kid that is not looking at sport as a temporary thing. Like they're not looking at like, I'm going to play high school ball and then I'm done. Like you get these kids that are like, this is it. When you get that marriage of the parent and the kid, it's just really a piece of cake. And that distinction gets made quickly. There's places up by us that are like just factory farm youth training things. And I've seen some of the kids that have come from there. They've come over and worked with us, and their foundational skill sets are so lacking that when we begin working with them, all the common stuff that you would think would have been taught or addressed is totally left off the table. And you're essentially taking a really good athlete with zero technical skill set, and you're trying to make them understand that, like, hey, you're already awesome. And it's just like you said, they're strong enough to hurt themselves, but now they have to start adding these details and diagnostics to make sure that they don't,
Yeah.
and to make sure that they continue to progress. Because the other thing is, most of those kind of factory farm spots, they have a playbook, and they don't really know how to operate outside the playbook. It's a lot like modern physical therapy.
Oh, yeah.
You have a playbook. If someone that comes in doesn't fit the playbook, then they usually don't get what they're looking for.
And it's that athlete's fault.
And it's the athlete's fault. Yeah, it's the athlete's fault. We've had a couple people who were extremely durable get injured. A couple pro BMX people, actually, extremely durable, get injured, and then go to physical therapy and do what they're told. And because they're tough as hell and they do what they're told, they're assessed as better or worse or something like that, but inaccurately.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in that position too. I had a spinal fusion surgery in 2012, and they really give you a very low percentage chance of return to athletics with something like that. Like they basically tell you, like, you got, a 10 or 15% chance of returning to like an athletic level. And then the reality is, if you can't move through that in a systematic diagnostic type of way, you're just going to stay injured.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my primary goal always is to intercept that before it occurs. And with a lot of the adults that we train, you don't have that opportunity, and that's where you have to start really figuring out every trick in the book to get them to do what is needed. And that's where we really focus a lot on scaling and like the personal adaptations it takes to get people to do what they need to do. Everybody needs to squat. Everybody needs to deadlift. Everybody needs to press. It's just a matter of how you get them to do that safely with the limitations that they come in with.
Yeah, in respect to the adults, how I communicate that is I never want to work around an injury. I want to work through it. So help you understand your body to the point. And then if there's something structural, well, we're still going to squat, step, and lunge. However, here's parameters, or here's another opportunity to front rack
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
what these other people doing. But we're still moving the same. It's just a different implement.
And it's a lot of what we looked at yesterday is,
Mhm.
is, it may not be an issue where they need to load themselves with a lot of weight, but it may be an issue where they need a huge amount of force and engagement that something like leverage can do. Yesterday, we were tipping implements forward and noticing how much more engagement it requires to just move something away from you and tip.
Mhm.
And it was making these really accurate positional corrections. And it's so much safer. We call it relative weight because, of course, 25 pounds is 25 pounds when it's next to you. But when you push it a foot away from you and tip it forward, it's really no longer 25 pounds.
Mhm.
But it still doesn't have the ability to hurt you like 200 pounds or 300 pounds. So that type of diagnostic and that type of observation is what keeps people progressive forever. It's what keeps people progressive forever.
And they can feel it.
They can feel it.
So the numbers may be lying to them, but at the same time, hey, that 25 pounds extended, tilted, it's 25 pounds. However, I can feels different.
It's proof. It's proof.
Mhm.
It's like we joke and call it adaptive non-science. We can prove it on anybody, but it's not something that I can quantify. I don't know what the weight turns into when you move it 18 inches away and tip it forward, but I know it's heavier than 25 pounds.
Mhm.
And then that's the leverage and stuff is a lot of what we use the maces for. We use them for all the fun stuff, swing them around, hit shit with them, but what we've done over the last 9 years is as a strength implement, using them as a diagnostic and a recovery tool for shoulder injuries. If people are having trouble with hinging or they're coming back from a back injury or something like that, it just makes an enormously stable way to retrain these patterns and positions.
Mhm.
Because the weight is relative. It's 30 pounds, but it's 30 pounds on the end of a 3-foot lever, which is no longer 30 pounds. All of that brings them back up to where we're putting them on the heavy stuff like the barbells.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, if the only trick we had in our toolbox was the barbell, they would be coming up really short, and they'd probably be hurt a lot more than they needed to be.
Yeah, big
And they'd
time.
be frustrated as hell.
Yeah.
You know?
I have an online training program, Old Bull. So it's for, I'll call them seasoned leaders.
Okay.
Been through a few different programs,
Yeah.
but able to manipulate foot position, to manipulate where the weight is loaded. So that way now it feels like this, but it's not the same impact and stress that their old barbell movements have.
Yep.
Barbell movements.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that into the program.
Yeah, I like
It's
it.
punny.
Yeah.
So finding different ways, but I want that self-discovery because I want them to feel where their limitations are. You were on this training program for years, and within one movement, if you're willing now, we're going to explore and find different limitations that you didn't know existed. So I was full in yesterday and going to apply some of the movements, especially the barbell with
Ooh.
the grip here.
Yeah.
And you called me out right away. I was flying around. And you're like, all right, let's build some tension.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people are strong enough to just get away with that.
Yes.
And that's where, that's where I mentioned yesterday after just demonstrating it, and everyone else in the room did it better than I did, which was awesome. I had put some weight on it a few times because I wanted to see what it did. And I looked at it on a video, and the heavier ones, of course, it was murderously difficult, but the heavier one made what I considered for my body the best squat that I can perform. And it's just because there had to be this tip to tail tension.
Hmm.
And if there was any little thing that was off, because of the difficulty of having a bar upside down away from you with weight, if I made a mistake, it would have showed up and it wouldn't have worked. So that's we call it variable elimination.
Okay.
So I'm trying to eliminate any variable by using any strategy we need to that isn't max load. It isn't the most difficult to implement. It's the thing that makes the most positive change in whatever movement we're practicing with somebody. For example, if someone is having trouble lunging, they've got ankle issues, they've got broken toes, they've got whatever. Oftentimes, we'll just prop a mace up next to them, and they'll essentially just cane this mace and lunge attached to this mace.
Hmm.
It's not taking anything away from what they're doing. It's just adding a little bit of stability until they get back to the full version of what they can do. Minus those diagnostics, people are going to be on the bench a lot more. Um, they're very likely to indulge chronic injuries because they don't have a solution for it.
Nope.
And my goal is always to have a solution for it. And part of the only value of being injured as much as I've been is that I've had to use myself as a guinea pig to figure a bunch of really challenging stuff out. And once I can get it to work on myself, then I can confidently pass it on to others.
Yeah. Two notes on that. So I coached at University of Texas football, and I saw dudes squat with chains, 500 pounds, repping it out. And then I would ask them to step into and hold ISO, a lunge. Impossible.
That's right.
Most difficult thing they ever done in their
That's
life.
right.
So then just had them brace the edge of the rack just so they could mentally and emotionally handle this lunge. That was mind blowing. So like eliminating variables, that's where my mind went when you said that.
Yeah.
And
And that's wild also, but also
I don't know how it's possible.
not as surprising as I would like it to be.
Well,
You know?
yeah. And then within the self-awareness, so the interoception, like not only the mental fortitude to search and navigate and find these limitations, but also we can call it coordination, interoception, put some science to it or adaptive non-science words to it.
Yeah.
But it's a combination of the want and the will to improve, but also like the internal feeling of I can't do this. Why? Now how do I feel strong?
Well, and a way that we skin that is we hammer hard that scaling is never a demotion as long as the effort is the same as the pre-scaling movement. So if your push-ups are cashed out on the ground, as opposed to doing garbagey push-ups or even stupider push-ups from your knees or something like that, then you just simply prop the push-up up.
Mm-hmm.
You put your hands on a bench press bench and you do push-ups. People's ego gets in the way for a minute on that, but then when they remove that, then they realize that what they're doing is they're building with strategy,
Mm-hmm.
not volume. They're not just smashing themselves with more terrible push-ups.
Yeah.
They're scaling the push-up to the point where they're getting the same function with a little bit less body weight. And that concept is true of every single thing that we do. We went through that yesterday. You know, how many times have both of us seen someone with a bar in the back rack finish a lift that should not have been performed in the beginning?
All the time.
All the time, all the time. And then the assessment there would be, okay, was the weight too heavy? Was the position poor? Or also very often, is the barbell not the best tool for that person in the back rack right now?
Yeah.
So that's when, if you don't have two or three other options in the tank, people are going to come up short, frustrated, hurt more, and I think plateaus are a myth. But then that's when people start talking about plateaus,
Mm-hmm.
and I think
And
that's
and building their own barriers. I can't.
yeah.
I've never been able to.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yep. And I don't fault them for that, because the hunting for infinite scaling options is not glamorous work. But it's in my opinion, it's the most important thing, because it keeps high performing individuals that want to make progress making progress forever.
Mm-hmm.
And an example that I can use that's an easy one is, we've got a wonderful woman that's been with us for 15 years at this point. She's older. She came to us initially in real rough straits, and she's trained her ass off the whole time she's been there. There's been peaks and valleys of certain movements, but the better we get at scaling options, the better she gets at getting back all the stuff that she thought was off the table forever.
Mm-hmm.
She can get off the ground without her hands again now. She miscalibrated the plates that she had put on the bar, which I guess is sometimes an effective strategy.
Yeah.
And deadlifted 345 pounds the other day. She's 62 years old. That's real. She thought it was 315, and it wasn't, but she did it anyway. And that's just a combination of all of those small details.
Mm-hmm.
If every time she had a setback, I was like, well, we're just going to eliminate that movement from the docket, there's no way that she stays functional and powerful and fully capable at 60 whatever years old. You can't eliminate stuff. You have to figure out a way to adapt around it.
Mm-hmm. And why?
Yeah, and why?
Why is the
Exactly.
body protecting itself? Why is
Exactly.
that mental, emotional, biopsychosocial limitation in place?
And that, boy, is that the toughest one too? Because what could it be? Is anything.
Anything.
You sit for 8 hours a day. We may have just figured it out. You walked your dog up a hill for 4 hours. Maybe that's a contributing factor.
Mm-hmm.
But you still just we just have to be able to high level problem solve, and that's just a really non-glamorous observation game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So within respect to problem solving, we have programming, writing the program, and then we have coaching. So you're running groups through the program, but at the same time, I'm watching 1, 2, 3, 15 people and making adjustments on the go. So speak to us about problem solving through programming and then coaching it live.
Yeah. Huge distinction. And how many times in martial arts have we seen someone who may be a truly phenomenal practitioner be a very, very clumsy instructor? A lot. And with things like program design for me is group problem solving. I'm looking at what is the population need most: strength, power, positioning, conditioning, mental fortitude, whatever. Add 10 more things to that list, right? And then the personal diagnostics is independent study.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much less of a group problem solving and much more of a personal problem solving. The nice thing is, when you start finding, we call them consistent inconsistencies. Many people are going to exhibit the same little inconsistencies, and so it ends up being pretty easy to just assess those and address them, and then they're gone. But if you're writing a program and you're okay at writing a program, but you haven't done the diligence of assessing every movement in that program and how you would teach it and how you would scale it, up or down.
Mm-hmm.
You get some high performer that knocks something that you give them out of the park. What is their next scaling, so they don't feel like they just won the Olympics?
Yeah.
Because you're not done yet. You did a great job, but we just got started. And then the scaling on the other side is if someone can't do something, I don't ever want them to feel that way. I want them to feel like there is an adaptation that we can make that can get them to that version of what they want to do. And really, there really, really almost always is.
Oh yeah.
We really, I mean, we don't fall short on that very much.
Yeah, how I approach that when coaching and programming and teaching is I'm teaching movement, not movements. And you said this very well yesterday. You articulated at like finding the connections. I forget exactly what you said. I should have wrote it down. I was too busy moving, but it was not. Here's how you squat. Period. End of sentence. Here's how you hinge. Period. End of sentence. You were aiming to look for connections between all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's just, that's watching personal diagnostics. Some people, in the squat's the easiest one. If we're talking about a somewhat narrow foot, toes forward squat, some people can do that. Some people can do it great. For others, all it takes is the knowledge that one position doesn't work for every person, and then you make as minimal adjustment as you can to get to the optimal version of that position.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't say, well, they can't squat toes forward, feet narrow, so F it, do whatever you want. We say, okay, we're going to start toes forward, feet narrow. We're going to move 5 degrees wider and 5 degrees open, and we're going to see if that works. And if that works, the problem is solved. If not, you move another 5 degrees, turn your toes out another 5 degrees. And then the other side of that coin is if we move 5 times and turn their toes out 25 or 30 degrees, then we know we have a problem that we have to address from a mobility side, because at that point you're not in a functional squat position.
Yeah.
You know?
So how I handle that remotely is 2 different approaches. Number one, I encourage everybody film your major lifts, or I select one movement a day. Hey, film, put it on the feed so we all can learn. And I'm learning where your deficiencies are. And if I see patterns, then I can put warm-ups or movement solutions, I call them, into the prep work or intra heavy lift. So we pair this primary movement with this movement solution. And then it's either fixing where I anticipate stuff failing, because, yeah, programmed online for 10 plus years, so can anticipate where people fail, but it's still, I want the individuals on the group. And then within the program, I do have 3 levels. I write for the middle, but then direct up and direct down.
Oh, okay.
So I call it a bull level
Smart.
system, Bravo, Utah, and Lima. So direct and write the program for my Utahs and tell, hey, Limas, do this. Hey, Bravos, if you're struggling with this movement, hit swap exercise, sub this in there. And it's effectively the same pattern, just, a scaled down, which I love. This is scaling down is never a demotion.
No.
I want them to feel that way.
No.
I just give them now, we have a pathway up too.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's a gateway drug. Scaling is a gateway drug to everything that people want in their physical performance. And when we crack the ice with people, we see our highest level people routinely putting their full ass into the training. And look, the stronger you are, the more you're going to cash out in the main lifts. So eventually we would see people get frustrated. High level athletes would get frustrated because they'd put their full ass into part 1 of the training, which is always going to be the heaviest. And then in part 2, they feel themselves maybe drag or start to lose some efficiency or something. And at first they'll be critical of that, but they don't realize that that's what's supposed to be happening. Like if you put your full ass into this first part, you should be somewhat diminished, and the training program should accommodate for that. You can't expect people to be at their absolute best if you're doing a properly executed strength program. Once people crack that ice and they realize that when you start failing, you start scaling, man, progress is endless. It's endless.
Yeah, I like that. And this leads to a note I wrote down from yesterday: completion versus composition.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, look, there's a time to check out and go, and it's when you're riding an Airdyne bike or doing something like that, where it's just high reward, low risk. Towards the end of the training day, where you're just running it wide open. But everything else is composition based. We don't do, I mean, I would go so far as to say that almost every intelligent coach in the world has eliminated weightlifting for time. Let's hope they have anyway. And I mean, so we never do that. We never did that. Even back when we had an early CrossFit in Long Beach, we never did that. So it's always composition based.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you need to take a 3-1000 on the ground to brace that weight in order to do the lift right, there's no time pressure to that. What we want is right, not faster.
Mm-hmm.
Harder, not faster.
Yeah.
And once you can get people out of that mindset and into the mindset that okay, something is coming where you're going to be able to just blast. They know that's there for them, so their tendency to try and do it in the weightlifting portions goes down.
Yeah.
And that's really just, I think, how we've balanced building very, very good strength with very, very good power endurance and conditioning and all that other stuff.
Yeah, and I like this for field sports because then, okay, hey, I can communicate, hey, this one's for completion, and you go where you need to go
Yep.
to get this done.
Yep.
Where composition, this is alignment assignment technique. I need you to be in the right position on the field. I need you to do your job and then do it as perfect as possible.
Yep.
So respect to that. Giving them times where they can disappear and go to the pain cave.
For sure.
But
for sure.
I can't have composition sports skill tasks where you go to your pain cave. That's not going to help your team.
And even from a sustainability standpoint, you can't do that for 40 minutes a day, 4 days a week.
No.
And that gets really lost in the shuffle. And when we see a lot of reforming CrossFitters and things like that, what they're trying to get out of their habit of is pure adrenaline. You know, the day does not begin and end going as hard as you possibly can. Anyone that's trained for any length of time knows that that's just not a sustainable path. It's fun to lift heavy. It's fun to go hard. They're both important, but they're not the same thing. And that gets lost in the shuffle a lot. And I think that leads to a lot of frustration. And again, plateaus are a myth, but that leads to what people perceive as plateaus.
Let's get into plateaus.
Okay.
So we were just having coffee here outside, and you dropped a one-liner that I had to write down. Plateaus are just a myth.
Yeah, they're a myth.
Let's expand on that.
I believe that any plateau can be cracked with accuracy and movement and implement variety.
Mm-hmm.
Accuracy and implement variety. So if someone is, so we'll just use a deadlift because it's the easiest one to consider. If someone has a 600-pound deadlift, and I'm essentially painting a picture that has actually happened for us. If someone's got a 600-pound deadlift and they're looking to compete, but they're stuck and they know they need to get 635 or 650 or whatever to get the result they want, and they've been doing primarily barbell-based accessories or dumbbell-based accessories, conventional type accessories, and they feel they're stuck, you have to change the stimulus to change the response. We all very much know that. And so what they believed to be a plateau, we looked at as an opportunity and added really heavy kettlebell swings with the pistol grip and stacked hand, as well as the conventional position, so that they could get a few different footprints on the kettlebell swing. And then we added things like really heavy mace shovels, which happens from the exact same hinge as the primary deadlift. And he was in a linear progression, and within 6 to 8 weeks of adding in those accessories, he put 100 pounds on a world-class deadlift, and he won a Masters championship in Hawaii and deadlifted 7 whatever pounds. And to me, that was a nonsense number. But what it showed is that there was this one little hole in the boat that one of these tiny adaptations fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the progress started again, and it was really just a great fit. And really what it was just I was watching his deadlift, and it was very, very good. Of course, I mean, 600 pounds is 600 pounds, and his hips weren't as fast as they needed to be at the top, and he was getting stuck. He's just getting stuck. Heavy ass kettlebell swings, snapping your legs straight, stomping those heels down,
Mm-hmm.
full violence of action, open those hips right back up, and then his lockouts became like terrifying.
Yeah.
And for him, that was purely just a matter of he was deadlifting so much for so long, and he was so experienced but he just needed a couple other boxes checked. And once we checked those boxes, it was over. And that's been the same with so many people.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you can see those and you anticipate, yes, you're here, this plateau, and a lot of other coaches would say, that's amazing. And they may be comparing that athlete to themselves,
yeah,
where,
yeah.
okay, yes, that is amazing. A lot of hard work to get there. However, let's explore a little bit.
Well, and just as you said before, what I'm looking at is exploring that athlete's full potential that I see.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing, holy crap, that's a 600-pound deadlift with slow ass hips. What's that thing going to look like when he's, blasting his hips into space, swinging a 150-pound kettlebell?
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what it's going to look like.
So that's ideal coach and athlete relationship because he knows there's more in the tank. However, he needs to find a coach to help get him there, and you're able to see the deficiency and have a game plan, a roadmap to get him where he also sees himself.
Well, and the other thing that I've focused on a lot and I've had to tinker with extensively for a long time is making sure that the unconventional is stupid because they're not unconventional tools. Kettlebells and maces are not unconventional tools. They are primary strength tools that people underutilize. But what we have to always consider is that the same linear progression schemes, like the same rep counts and everything like that, are the same with more unusual tools. So it's not like this guy's going to deadlift and I'm going to be like, okay, you're going to do 200 kettlebell swings for time. We're saying, okay, your accessory for your deadlift today is 5 sets of 9 kettlebell swings at 100 and whatever pounds with full violence,
Yeah.
a minute between each set. And you should feel like your hips are jelly, lukewarm water by the time you're done. And so it's a matter of implement variety, intelligent implement variety, and then also knowing that those schemes and strategies have to be the same as the primary strength stuff.
Yep.
You can't just start tossing in kettlebell or mace stuff or whatever in some random scheme and expect it to improve people's overall strength.
Yeah. So then leaning into simple coordination. So reprogressions, as you introduce new movements, they're going through the same coordination phases of those primary movements, of those bilateral. We need to almost start Bambi, deer legs, confusion. That's intermuscular coordination where my biceps and triceps are learning about each other with this new implement.
Yep.
With this new adjustment in foot, arm, trunk, torso position. And so we work from inter to intra. Now we get into motor units, and the bigger the dude, the more motor units we have in there to toy with.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's all connected, which is why adding more in. It's not just always barbell movements, weights on our world record board here in our high school weight room. It's okay. We're going to add in this different stuff because sport is creative. Sport is that same coordination level, but it's a lot of movements and moments and stuff that the kid's never done before. So these help with his discovery, their discovery, which is amazing.
We consider that the 360-degree model, right? So if what we're looking at is someone is extremely used to moving in a linear way, and then we add something offset, like a mace shovel is the same hinge as a kettlebell deadlift or any deadlift, primary deadlift, but the difference is your one hand is back in your pocket, the other hand is further down the mace, and there's an extremely accurate timing issue because your hips are throwing your back hand. So if you're locking out early in your hips or you're locking out late in your hips, the mace isn't going to move the way you want it to move.
Mm-hmm.
So it circles back to stimulus and response. They're familiar with the primary pattern, but then just like you said, it's just building all of that other stuff, that insulation around that primary pattern that may have been ignored because they've lifted the same tool for a long time.
And this is where I like it for athletics, and this is strength and conditioning is so valuable for athletes. One, we're learning how to fail, and then we're listening to an authority figure, a coach, trusting them, and we're making progress. And these movements are much simpler than sport-specific skills for sure. So now we're learning to trust ourselves and value the work that goes into it. So we're building our character, then to prepare to step in the arena and listen to a coach, be coach able, and have it all connected. But it's through a safe environment and a trusted coach in the weight room to lead us there versus a person that's jumping all over us or just a clapper.
And we make that huge distinction between cheerleader and coach.
Yeah.
And I mean, before we got eliminated from the internet, I had a very few very specific posts up there about the difference between cheerleading and coaching, and the really, really valuable distinction is if you're one, you have to know you're one, and if you're other, you have to know you're the other. If you're cheerleading, your people are going to get hurt, and you're not going to really have the progress that you want to have. There's really got to be diagnostics and learning, and in my opinion, there really has to be a lot of personal experimentation. If you see something failing and you have the physical capacity and capability to do so, you need to test it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason that we whittled down our kettlebell lifting stuff and then developed the kettlebell lifting stuff that we've done, which is, I mean, it's profound. The engineering we've done for kettlebell lifting is significant. It's changed the entire face of it. That was predicated by the fact that we had reached what we thought was an upper end limit and had to make adjustments, or our people would have stopped making progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you didn't blame the people.
I didn't blame the people, and
that's another poor, I'll call it lowercase c coach move.
Yeah.
Versus capital C coach.
Yep.
Where you break a lot of lowercase c. I'm breaking a lot of eggs to make an omelet, to find my people that just fell into my system that works, which is very popular in the other environment, functional fitness arena.
Yeah.
I also see it at the college strength and conditioning level, the college athletics level, because I'm easy to recruit away my mistakes. So if my 5-star kid keeps making mistakes, they're unable to perform, rather than continue to develop them, social, emotional, mental toughness, building on them up, I'll recruit them away. I got another 5-star kid. I got to transfer. So now, me as a sport coach, I'm limiting myself, whether I realize it or not, because I can recruit away my problems. Versus developing the kid.
So people want to polish the diamond, but they don't want to mine that diamond.
More often than not. Yeah. And then the money is pouring into, there's a lot of fears and dangers I feel with NIL, and money is pouring into these particular sports. So now I can pay away my problems versus 4 years of development for an individual.
And that's so far outside my scope. But the way that I look at it is, if you've got that 5-star athlete and they have any designs on going further than they've already gone, it sure as hell isn't going to take 4 years to get their acuity to where it needs to be.
Well, smart coaches are going to learn from coaches like you and find these tools to help bulletproof them. There are many that then take a very hands-off approach because, hey, I don't want to hurt that person because I'll lose my job.
So I think I see a lot of that in fighting.
Yeah.
And when I see strength and conditioning for fighting, I mean, man, it frustrates me. It frustrates me to a degree that I scratch my head. And it's because the fighters are so tough. They're so good already. They're so durable already. They don't quite understand yet that strength and conditioning is a martial art. And the more details they apply to their strength and conditioning, the better they will be at fighting. It's not diminishing the time away from martial arts training. It's enhancing their martial arts training. And with the people that we've trained in martial arts and also strength and conditioning, I mean, even if they're a beginner level at martial arts, their fundamentals are tremendous. Their power is tremendous. Their body awareness is outstanding. Difficult to deal with at very beginner levels of martial arts. And I think about, like, when we've gotten the opportunity to work with higher level folks, and with Bo, I worked with the Performance Institute for a while. We saw so much cool stuff. It really, just for some reason, is still eluding folks. And I've said enough times that the first major fight team that really, really bites down on a progress driven strength and conditioning is gonna stand out in a really unique way.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we watch fighting, and that's the hole in the boat. Is you see someone whose technical prowess these days is so phenomenal, but you're going to end up with a technical limitation to your skill set at a certain point. A lot of people aren't going to get there for a while, but some people are there. And then the way that that scale has to offset is physicality.
Mm-hmm.
You at a certain point, if you and I are the same skill level in fighting, you have to be able to smash me with power and strength and endurance. And if you're not able to do that, then we don't know the results of the fight.
Yeah.
Um,
I see this in the sports level as well. And a lot of parents, they want, and sport coaches think, hey, we need more skill work, which means less time for our, call it physical preparation. So now how I explain and argue and help sport coaches understand, because every coach is selfish. I imagine it's in fighting too. If I have a strength and conditioning coach, they're selfish. If I have a wrestling coach, they're selfish. If I have, this specific martial art focus for that person, they want more time with them for these specific components. So how I help paint the picture for sport coaches is a Venn diagram. So we have skill, sports skill as one circle. I got athleticism as another, and then mental. In the middle of that is our performance. So if I spend more time with skill, yes, I'm going to increase that middle box of my performance. But if I start to really invest in my athleticism, which in the same time frame, we're connecting mental preparedness, toughness, resilience, grit, as with athleticism tools,
mhm.
now we're really expanding performance, which makes your skill time, they're more coordinated, they're more coach able, and they're more resilient, they're in better shape because I can do more reps now. If you're focusing on that, your skill time is so much more valuable because of who they have become through these other two.
I mean, the thing that another thing I don't understand, there's a lot I don't understand, is how athletes and coaches, and even like you said, some selfish ones don't see the correlation between physical acuity and everything else. If I'm practicing a technical strength and conditioning program, process, series of movements, whatever the case is, that learning how to learn is translating into everything else that you're learning. I've taken time off from training certain martial arts due to injuries and things like that. But if I've kept the strength and conditioning aspect of things, and so say for a while, if I wasn't able to do striking, I would be doing a ton of medicine ball throws at the wall
Mm-hmm.
where I'm doing the exact same patterning as I would be with striking. You know, my non-working hand is at my face. The throwing hand is coming straight out, straight back. The power comes from the floor, all this kind of stuff. So the physical acuity of fighting is still there. The physical IQ is still improving, and it's not taking away from training. It's adding to training.
Mm-hmm.
This is not me saying in any way that martial artists should train less martial arts. I just firmly believe, and I know that I can prove on anyone walking the earth, that if they were to balance it with technical strength and conditioning, with the implement combinations that we use, they're going to be better at fighting. The other thing I know for a fact, and this is this is a tough one to watch sometimes, even with places like the UFC, is if people are building tensile strength, not one rep max strength, but tensile strength. They're using the barbells, they're using kettlebells, they're using maces. They're getting, I mean, the mace, nothing is as far from your body as a mace. If you can control 30 pounds at the end of a 3-foot lever, you are going to hit people harder.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be harder to armbar. You're going to be harder to take down. That's it. If you could do a 100-pound Turkish get up or more, very few people are going to hold you on the floor. So there's a lot of ways to stack these decks of fighting prowess that just currently aren't really being addressed in strength and conditioning.
No. And one thing I want to highlight, speaking back to your presentation, that leverage is a teacher. So what are some examples? The mace is a great one.
Yeah.
What are some examples maybe that coaches can show athletes that are easy,
Yeah, thanks.
that
That's
can
a
help
great one.
apply this?
If you don't have a mace, you don't have sledgehammer, something like that. The value of that is you can extend it away from your body, and then when you start tipping it forward, it requires a level of engagement that feels like a max effort lift.
Mm-hmm.
So using distance from the body and leverage and angles to create difficulty is a phenomenal way of proving and improving position, and also getting a lot of work in without a lot of attrition. A simple way that a coach could do that with tools that almost everybody has is either with a bumper plate or a kettlebell or even a dumbbell, a little lesser so a dumbbell, but you would just hold it away from your body and then begin to tip it to an angle that becomes difficult and that requires the tip to tail engagement from the end of that implement to your feet on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We practiced this drill yesterday. You hold a 25-pound plate real close to you. It feels like 25 pounds. You push it a foot away from you and tip it 30 degrees forward. How much weight does it feel like?
Yeah, heavy. And this is me, note to self, add in B-roll of me doing these exercises so they can visualize what we're
Great,
speaking about right now.
great. And because it is a sneaky, goofy thing, people aren't going to look at a 25-pound plate and be like, that can make me stronger. It can. It does. We do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the reason our people don't get hurt is because we insulate every single thing from top to bottom. We're not just relying on one trick.
Yeah, I love it. And I feel the sledgehammer, very accessible, Home Depot, very cost
Easy,
effective.
easy,
Yeah.
easy. Yep.
So there's no reason if you really want to introduce that, then this is an opportunity.
Truly. And
And
I mean, and yeah, geez, find me for other things to do with the sledgehammer. Like we were talking about yesterday, teaching the Turkish get up
oh yeah.
with the sledgehammer for leverage is phenomenal. And that's what I was trying to goof around with that chair. And it actually failing at it was probably better because it proved the value of leverage. I mean, if someone said, okay, for money, you need to do a
I've
15-pound
filmed
Turkish
that.
get up
So
for two
B-roll.
hours,
Yeah.
right?
This is Greg doing the Turkish get up with the chair.
Yeah. Like if someone said with a 15-pound kettlebell, do Turkish get ups for an hour, I'd be really tired, but I would do Turkish get ups for an hour with 15 pounds. That chair was 15 pounds. It's the value of leverage and angles that creates so much difficulty and value.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really an unsung hero because it's just not glamorous. You know, I mean, you know, you're watching NFL Combine. You're not trying to watch those dudes stand there with a 25-pound plate. But the reason that our people are flipping the same weight tires as the NFL Combine is that we're insulating our athletes in a slightly different way than even high-level professional organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And I take a lot of pride in that. But that's not the end game for me. The end game for me is I want that information in their hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I loved all the coaches that jumped into your practical because as you said, we're all pretty good movers. We were confident to step in.
That was a high level group. Let's not make any bones about it.
You were still able to identify things that we needed to work on. Great coachable group. And
really, really good.
So I would encourage coaches that are listening to, get your hands on Greg's information and then do
Thank
it.
you.
If your body is having challenges with these in coordination issues, or you feel or we heard snap crackle pops yesterday,
there was a lot of it. Yeah.
and those deficiencies in yourself, this is 15 years of coaching experience, your athletes have those same deficiencies because you're applying the program that you're following and you didn't know you had these limitations. So now try to find your own weaknesses, holes in the boat, as Greg was referencing, because now we're in a position to understand where I can and safely apply these tools to my athletes to help them see and feel, which is then now we're switching on intent, which is our secret to unlocking coordination, which we spoke about before. So it does start with that ability as a coach to put our barriers and walls down and learn how to move. Like it's not the number on there. Like 25 pounds is 25 pounds until it's not.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, you have to make less more if you really want to improve. And for us, you know, athletes that are listening, your coaches and trainers and teachers should be high level, constantly working problem solvers. If they're yelling throughout the entire class, or if it's anything like that, then the less you say, the better you've instructed your group. And so once you've problem solved, one of my proudest moments is when we had a full group in there and it was a high level group, and we would go over the board, narrate the training day, and then turn them loose. And I would stand there silent with the exception of some minor encouragement for the entire training piece. You know, that's like the holy grail.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are doing so well because they've practiced so much. And that's always been a real aspiration for me. But if we're not trying to problem solve, then we're leaving progress on the table for every athlete that we're working with. And it requires cracking outside the playbook. anyone that thinks that the playbook is going to teach you what the pavement is going to teach you is mistaken. It's mistaken.
Boom.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, you're one of the most valuable minds, thinkers in the field that is leading exploration, man. So I appreciate you. Where can our listeners go? Follow Wolf Brigade, learn from you. I know it's a challenge every single time.
So right now, I guess what I'm going to do is point people to the YouTube. There's a decent amount of people on there. There is a gigantic movement library on our YouTube. 5 or 6 years ago, I filmed every primary movement in our curriculum, and it's up there for free with a few bullet points. And the thing with me is I want to help, and I'm often willing to do so in ways I shouldn't. As intelligent people have taught me, you have to monetize what you do, or eventually you go out of business and can't do it. So I want to help. If you look at stuff on our YouTube and you have questions, or you want to send a quick video, I'd be happy to assess it and send you a voice note back or something. But the bigger picture here is organizations need to start bringing in people to do diagnostics on their athletes. And every single athlete that gets that is going to be stronger as they stand.
Mm-hmm.
And I have very high level of confidence in that. You give me a thoroughbred college football player, I'm going to find something in them that makes them a better athlete as they stand. Because a lot of times it's just tinkering with those little tiny positional things that look, if a football strength and conditioning coach has got 60 people, there's a very small chance that they're putting the diagnostic effort into all those people. Very small, because it's tedious.
Yeah. And then speaking directly to that coach, your athlete, seeing you find a specialist that can help them in their career in the long term, that's going to show and build more connection than if it's bringing in an expert and you not looking as such in your own mind. It's going to do more for the athlete and connecting you with them, you finding a solution for a problem that they maybe felt or didn't know existed that's going to prolong their career. That's going to go far for you too. It's not a shot to your ego.
Absolutely not. It's a performance issue. It's a safety issue. And who in the coaching field does not want better performance and better safety from their athletes? And then with something like fight sports is weight cutting issues. If you're building this tensile strength, you're still lifting heavy weights, but you're also lifting relative weights. Kettlebells are lighter than the barbell. Maces are lighter than the kettlebell. If the program design accommodates it, you're building a tremendous amount of strength without putting on a tremendous amount of mass. Therefore, you're going to end up with less weight cutting issues for fight sports, or weight issues with any sport.
Mm-hmm.
That's often really unsung too. Is people want to lift heavy and get really strong, but look, alongside that comes what? Size.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people can't afford that. We want to put bulk on somebody, man. We both could do that in a heartbeat.
Easy.
That's the easiest game.
Where's our machines?
That's the easiest game playing. But when you're thinking about what someone actually needs for their sport, then you have to start thinking about
efficiency, coordination, and packing a punch with it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cool. Great. Greg, I'm glad we got this opportunity.
Me too.
Thanks. And excited to put this out there and then share more of your movements and continue to apply tools just to my own game and then athletes that are working with me. And
thanks so much for helping yesterday, man. Like yesterday was people don't realize that the 8-9 people that were up there helping were all like tip of the spear. Like we were in a very cool spot yesterday. So thank you.
I've led practicals with NSCA and it's like, all right, I need people here.
Yeah.
So
if
friends are leading practicals, I'm first person to jump in and just be a guinea pig.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Cool.
Went great. And thanks a lot for this. This was a conversation that if this circulates and people actually pay attention, this could make some impacts. So I appreciate that.
Always. That's what we do.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for another episode, Captains and Coaches. Bye.
Thank you. See. Great. Man, that was good.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Captains and Coaches podcast. If you like what you heard here today, be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review the show for more new episodes every Wednesday. If you liked our movement concepts and ideas that we talked about with Greg, you can see how I implement them into our strength and conditioning program, Old Bull. Click the link in the show notes for a 7-day free trial. Again, thank you to Greg for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in and helping us raise the game.